So you want to be a wizard? I'm going to show you how in Nightingale today with 18 enchantment spells, whether you want to be offensive, help your teammates out, or just make sure that you're getting the most out of harvesting, there's a spell for you. You are going to need a whole host of the stone mortar benches and of course the enchanter focuses, as some of them do require the final upgrades to craft. So here we go, here's a complete definitive guide. There should be 8 enchantments that you'll be able to craft, or maybe 7 if it's the simple or refined, with a powerful one that you'll be able to unlock a bit later once you get the excellent enchanter's focus and the excellent stonemason's table. A lot of spells rely on crafting stuff out of stone, mixed in with bones or seeds, and this is how you make the seals needed alongside essence dust and later on tier 1 and 2 essence to craft the most powerful spells. You will need additional items like a potion and maybe an Eton heart to craft the most powerful spells later. Just like the rest of the game, you do need to buy the recipes from essence traders, or you might be lucky enough to be given them as a reward, although I found I was often given a spell to use and put on rather than the actual recipe itself. Of course, I'm going to give you the location of every single one of these spells so you know where to track it down, so you don't have to go through all the traders like I did. So if any of these spells aren't popping up, even though you know you just bought one, make sure you are looking in the right crafting bench. It is the upgraded version, and again, later on I'll show you the different augments that unlock the more advanced spells. You can only equip the spells on uncommon, rare and epic gear, not just regular equipment. Uncommon you'll have 1 slot, rare you'll have 2 slots, and epic 3 slots. So you can have 3 different spells on 1 tool. No guns can be enchanted this way, only melee weapons or melee items. So the basic ones you'll start at crafting weak nature and human seals. These can be made at a simple stonemason's bench, and then you can craft them at a enchanter's focus. When you do go to craft a lot of these seals or the spells themselves, you'll see they've got attributes associated with them. It does look like this is a mistake. I don't think they actually carry over. I tested a bunch of them to see if it would increase my health like it was meant to, and they just didn't. Whether or not it's just certain things they will increase, I find it hard to believe. The whole point of magic score that you might see under your attributes and stats is you can only improve it by using hats and the weapons that you crafted with certain properties, certain metals. Your magic power will dictate how powerful your spells are, so it's all tied together. If you could go and craft these spells using really top end gear and making them powerful that way, you wouldn't need to invest in your actual armor or your weapons having a magic attribute on them. So for now, ignore any of the attributes that the enchantments say they have, like extra stamina, regeneration, or anything like that. It doesn't look like they really do the job. Just pay attention to the description, that's what they do. If this changes or find anything different, of course, let you know. I will be working on a more advanced magic user guide to give you the optimum type of build if you want to be using magic pretty much as your main. And remember, if you can't see the spell showing up, make sure you've got the right augment. There's a whole bunch of different augments that will unlock specific ones. But effectively, as long as you've got the formula board, as well as maybe the vials, and surprisingly, either a wheelbarrow or the plough, these will show up with the more advanced spells. The advanced ones also appear right at the bottom of the list under decor additions, so don't be misled as well just by seeing the first 7 or 8. You do have to go past all the cards and charms to see any that you've unlocked with any augments now attached. I'm not going to list where the augments can be found because you should be getting these as rewards, and a lot of them are pretty early game. By the time you get to the more powerful spells that you might unlock in the later realms, I'm sure you'll have all of these augments pretty much by then, or you should have at least. Just look out for the magic symbol on any augment that you might find on an essence trader to see if it is going to unlock certain enchantments or just charms. And yeah, you can always refer back to the essence trader section yourself. Like the plough here unlocks Quake, I'm pretty sure the wheelbarrow did as well, and a whole host of others. Arborist Shield, Beast Instinct, Bramble Wall, Hermetic Flame, Illumination, Janna's Roar, Recovery and Summon Swarm are all the basic ones that you'll be able to craft, and you will need an excellent enchanter's focus to craft the Bramble Wall. Assassin's Sight, Blast Miner's Trap, Dispel, Oberon's Bounty, Quake, Regrowth, Ring of Empowerment, Salvation, Shockwave and Track Legend, you will need augmentations to go ahead and craft. Starting off with Arborist Shield and Regrowth, which can be both bought at the same trader. Head to the Forest Herbarium and you'll be able to get it here. The regrowth, simple enough. Go ahead and chop a tree, Use the spell and in a radius around you, it will make all plant life grow back again. Didn't get around to testing this if it works on tier 3 or 4 or maybe even 5 trees that you might find later in the game. I'm kind of hoping so, as that means you wouldn't have to keep traipsing around different realms just to look for that particular type of wood. You could sit here doing the spell and just making it regrow. So if your realm has become a wasteland through all the chopping of trees, you can now start to make it look a bit better. The Arborist Shield will give you more resistance against things like poison, miasma damage and the blight. It won't protect you against fire though, so maybe not a good one to use against certain enemies like the bounds with the flamethrowers on them. It's a relatively short buff, it will wear out, so you have to keep remembering to use it before an encounter or maybe a defense against lots of creatures. It definitely does reduce the effects of some of the other stuff, but I would say it's still kind of a bit weak sauce. Next up, Beast's Instinct and Janna's Roar can both be bought from the Desert Gloom Essence Trader. Beast's Instinct hasn't really come in useful that much, to be honest. You can always usually tell where creatures are because they'll often come and hit you. Maybe for taking on certain creatures if you're in a labyrinth or whatever, just to see what you're going to face up against. I had it more actually in use when we got stuck in a vault and we couldn't work out how to progress. It was meant to be killing all the creatures in the area. Turns out there was a glitch, and this has happened a few times. The creatures were running around on top of the ceiling instead of spawning in the actual dungeon. But you can see it highlights them in yellow, pulsing around. So yeah, if you find a use for that, great. I found in the desert it was really hard to see other creatures while using this. Maybe better use in the swamp or the forest if you're looking for creatures like harpies or certain alpha creatures to get their hides. Janna's Roar is really underrated and a great spell. What it does, it makes creatures frightened, but really stuns them, so they won't actually hurt you. They might just go on carrying walking about their business, and even after you start hitting them, they won't necessarily come around and do any damage to you straight away. It does only work on certain creatures. It won't work on the bound, and it won't work on the automatons, but pretty much everything else. I'd really wish I'd found out about this one much sooner, being so powerful. Honestly thought it would just be a bit weak sauce. Even if you only use it just to get across from one point to another to find an essence trader and not be attacked by every creature going, it's still going to be good. I reckon maybe some alpha creatures might be immune to it, because it does say that some creatures, if their courage is less, but it does seem to work on a whole wide range. If you head over to the Desert Herbarian, you'll be able to pick up the Shockwave and the Hermetic Flame. The Hermetic Flame is obviously going to set alight your weapon and tool. It's probably the one I've seen most used by people. It does do a great deal amount of fire damage, so it's pretty handy. Shockwave is really good for taking on multiple enemies. You don't do as much damage if you don't directly hit one, but you can stagger and knock down a whole swathe of them. You still might need your strength score to be quite high with this, but look how much I was doing just jumping in with these guys. I thought it was pretty cool. Recovery you'll find at the Swamp Antiquarian Essence Trader. An absolute go-to unless you've got hundreds and hundreds of potions. It will heal you very quickly, including your stamina, which it doesn't list, but absolutely does increase the speed at which you recover it. Oberon's Bounty, which you can find at the Forest Astrolabe Trader, gives you extra hits when mining or going ahead and harvesting trees. Depending what level it is, that will give you the amount of hits that you can have on ores or actual trees itself, and yeah, it seems to be doing a pretty good job, although my weapon was pretty OP. On top of that though, you do gain extra chance of getting more essence when you're harvesting any resources like this as well. Illumination I would probably avoid. There's much better ways to light everything around you, whether that's just torches or making sure you only explore during the day. It will cast a glowing light that will stay in a fixed position, but then you have to keep pressing the cast spell to make it move along to wherever you want to go. I'm hoping this gets improved in future. Instead it will just follow you around. I think that would be a much better use, even if it was for a limited time. It just seems a waste of my stamina casting it and just not getting much use. Now, Track Legend will help you find apex creatures and alphas. You do see a lot of the walls on the map with that head movement showing that there are some here, but if you're still a bit lost, using this will guide you to them. It's also really good for finding Carnute as well as the apex Eton, the elder one, and sometimes that doesn't appear using a spyglass. Now, these creatures can respawn at different times when you venture into this if you've closed the portal, so don't always assume that one realm won't have them. these maybe returning again, as I've definitely done that before, especially on my home realm where I've got a Carnute roaming around the desert. Sometimes this works, it won't show him there, and then other times it does work and he is running around. So yeah, use it, and a guided light will take you through to where the alpha is. Head to a forest gloom and you'll be able to get the Ring of Empowerment and the Summon Swarm. Ring of Empowerment is great for you as well as your friends. It will set up simply a ring and you're going to do a lot more damage, about 2,000 more damage compared to being outside of the wispy circle. Only affects one creature at a time, but Summon Swarm is actually pretty great. It does distract an enemy from attacking you as well, and it will whittle away its health as long as you can kind of stay away. Just got to make sure you're aiming it right, otherwise sometimes it will just bypass. But yeah, another underrated one that I think people should definitely try and get hold of, especially good for dealing with multiple enemies. At the Desert Hunt Essence Trader, you'll find Quake and Assassin's Sight. Quake is literally OP, just place it down and it will decimate enemies that will walk along it. Some enemies will obviously just bypass it a bit maybe quicker. I did find also maybe spiders weren't as prone to get caught in it as much. But every other enemy, it just does huge amount of damage and seems to last forever. Assassin's Sight is really good for getting them heart shots. It will reveal all the weak points of enemies. Now, it's pretty basic. Nearly every enemy has a weak point in its head, but there are additional weak points. You also do more critical damage when you hit these weak points with this active. At an Ascended Swamp Herbarium, you'll find this spell as well as the Blast Miner's Trap. Now, at the moment, the Blast Miner's Trap is kind of broken. You're meant to be able to place 3 points, and if enemies walk inside it, they'll pretty much explode, detonate, and do them a huge amount of damage. But against these locusts, they just weren't triggering. Nothing was happening. They were walking right over them, and they weren't exploding. The description says they just simply have to come in contact and it will explode, so you don't have to press another button or anything like that. It's kind of busted at the moment. I'll have to revisit this hopefully in the future if it gets fixed. That I'm sure it will be pretty powerful, as it is one of the late game ones that you unlock. This spell is the only way that you can fight Canute. You have to aim right at it and it will reveal him, so then you can go and take care of him. That is easier said than done. When you summon Canute, it will summon a whole host of other mobs, either bears and wolves, other wisp creatures as well sometimes, and yeah, it's a formidable fight. Canute is pretty tough on some of the higher realms, so if you are going to do this, make sure it's on a lower one at first. Just get used to it. He charges at you quite a lot, and he seemingly disappeared and went back to his ghost form pretty rapidly. I had to do it again a second time a little while later, once he stopped yeeting me everywhere. Not too sure if this spell has any other uses. I was thinking it might do something with certain other things that are glowing, but doesn't seem to. I kind of hope they add one where we can get rid of traps in some of the vaults, as they're so annoying. It'd be cool to have a spell that means you don't take any damage for the first 3 that you hit. And the last 2 are Salvation and Bramble Wall, that can both be bought from the Ascended Swamp Astrolabe. I do believe you can get Bramble Wall from another realm as well, a bit later on, but it's worth going to this one to pick up both. Pretty disappointed with the Bramble Wall. You might have noticed I'm not spoken about a lot of the ingredients for some of this stuff. As I mentioned at the beginning, it's moderate and maybe some of the powerful seals that you have to craft. It's not too hard to think of getting, but some items like this one, the Bramble Wall, require an Aton Heart, and yeah, it just wasn't doing that much damage. It effectively puts a Bramble Wall just like you have faced when you fight the Elder Aton, but it didn't seem to be doing any damage against the creatures. Definitely kept them at bay, so if you're trying to kettle some creatures in, keep them in maybe a firing line, it could be good, but you only get 2 Bramble Walls to place basically before they start actually disappearing. Now it does say they are meant to take damage, so again this might just be a bug, and in future it probably will be worth its kind of expense in crafting, but for now I would definitely avoid it. Salvation's a really interesting one. It's meant to replenish your teammates' health, but it also still works for you, so definitely worth doing. I think it also restores the same kind of a level as the restoration spell as well. Seems to do that anyway. Just remember though, you've got to aim it down, or you've got to be within the circle of it if you want it to take effect for yourself. But yeah, just look how effective it is. Once I did actually trigger it, I think this is probably just as good as the restoration spell. Maybe it doesn't last as quite as long. And that is it. That is all 18 of the spells and how to get them. Hopefully that's helped. Do look out for my advanced magic guide where I'll be trying to make the most powerful magic build I can, utilising armour and weapons, and then trying out all these spells. But otherwise, that is it. Until next time, ratbags, check out the rest of my Nightingale guides, and I'll see you later.